Welcome to the Incredible Machines podcast, where we converse with incredible people doing incredible things to learn just what makes them so incredible. Today, we have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Nerisha Maharaj. In this episode, Dr. Maharaj shares her profound insights and we learn how to cultivate stillness and presence, the importance of self-love, especially for leaders, the concept of same-sightedness, the power of gratitude, wholeness through the wisdom of Vedanta, meditation practices, and self-reflection being vital for spiritual growth, and many more learnings. As a bonus at the end of the episode, Dr. Nerisha takes us through a meditation, and this will be available as a separate clip for direct access. But without further ado, we bring you the incredible being, Dr. Nerisha Maharaj. Today we are beyond overwhelmed and in the best way possible, just so excited and giddy. And because we are joined by Dr. Nerisha Maharaj, Nerisha is Luke and I actually share Nerisha as a business coach and a life coach. And it's just an honor to have you in the room with us. So Dr. Maharaj is a global executive coach, spiritual leader, and former corporate executive who has worked with organizations like Deloitte, Unilever, the World Bank, and the Alpert Generations Foundation. So I've explained what an incredible machine is, and Luke and I go through this in episode 1, and I explained it again to Nerisha before we started recording. And just to further introduce Nerisha is an incredible machine is somebody, we've deemed it as somebody that walks into the room and changes the room. The energy in the room changes in a positive way. I've seen Nerisha do this at talks at the Oyster Box and in lectures and that. And but as I mentioned, Nerisha's my coach, and we've moved up to Hillcrest, and I no longer do in-person sessions with Nerisha. So Nerisha is one of the few people that I know that can change my energy on a phone call. Just so she's not in the room in person, she's there. She's there in spirit and in voice, and she's able to get the best out of me in that. So as we do in these podcasts, I think we hand over to the guest, and I just want to understand what the conversation is really going to be about. Is like, why are you like this? How did we get here? And those milestones, those things, how are you able to do that? But the prequel of that. And I think if I could just hand over to you there.
Okay, so thank you, John. It's an incredible honor to be here with both of you, John and Luke, and welcome to everybody who is listening. So I think there are many milestones that have shaped me. Sometimes when I reflect, it feels like I've had a few lives in one, and maybe just going through a few of them. The first one that comes to mind was being sent to Botswana at the age of 25 by Deloitte. I worked in the corporate world before coming into coaching, all alone. And this was to lead the local De Beers Botswana team and to bring their treasury up in line with best practice. So I faced many challenges there, ranging from having to hedge millions of dollars worth of diamond sales to leading this local Swana team who were very horrified to see this young female who was their new manager, to actually trying to figure out how to move sleeping cows out of my driveway entrance when I would return home from work, none of which I had experienced before. So it was a huge growth opportunity. And I think one of the things that stuck out for me that was particularly heartwarming was in figuring out how to lead this team, who were initially resistant, was learning that actually what was close to a local's heart in Botswana was their cows. And so I started to ask my team, how are their cows doing, in a genuine way, really wanting to know. And they would beam and light up and tell me all about it. So I learned a lot about cows, but also the productivity and engagement and enthusiasm of the team and connection to me just improved dramatically. So I think from that experience, it taught me how to forge connections with people from different walks of life. And when I left, the wine manager who had been particularly resistant to me actually cried when I left, which was quite heartwarming. So that was one. After that, shortly after that, I was posted off again by Deloitte to lead an American audit team in New York for 3 months amidst the magical winter snow, which was wonderful. And then at Unilever, I was based in London for 3 years, managing a global project that involved leading teams all around the world, which also taught me about leadership. And I think from those experiences, my advice to young people would really be, go out, because all of those experiences I had in my 20s, go out, be prepared to work hard, challenge yourself. If you're able to work in different countries, go and do that. I think in this age of influencers, sometimes there's a saying in accounting, substance over form. So I think as much as we market ourselves, the wise will soon discern whether there's any substance behind that. So, I think experience is important.
Amazing, it's amazing. Just to jump back a step as well, in my meeting, Nerisha, I did this exercise of interviewing and looking for a coach. And I think 2017 or 18 we first met. And then Nerisha went as an Enneagram specialist as well, and we went on further to do that with my previous agency's managing board and do that exercise. But so I went about finding the coach, and I just believe the coach is just so important, and it's just such a privilege to have you here. But and to have a coach, I noticed growing up, like in the sports where I was fortunate enough to have a coach that had some interest, and then having a personal coach after hours or anything like that, I excelled in whatever that specialization, that sport. So I can't recommend that experience enough. Nerisha, one of the things, couple things, being a CA got me, because I've got this, I had this blocker when it came to finance that I've been working on for the last 5 or so years. And then one of the things is Nerisha had met various people and had this amazing portfolio and book about self-love that we can ask about next. But also that she had met Madiba, and Madiba was one of my the original Incredible Machines as I had it. But just before we get into the Incredible Machine, the conversation we're going to have about that, your transition from the masters in self-love and then now the PhD in philosophy of business administration. How do you want to talk us through that? Like how have you managed? What is it? What can we take out of those learnings?
So the transition from corporate into being
a coach and leading people and focusing on self-love. I know the theme is there throughout the book and philosophy of, and but you're still involved in corporate. You just out of it in a way.
Yes. Yep. So I worked in corporate for over a decade, and it was never my plan to actually follow the CA route. And I think I persistently had this feeling that there's something else I'm meant to be doing. I just didn't know what. And then in 2012, I did my MBA, and my thesis, the topic that I chose to research was self-love. Like, what is it really? There's so much misunderstanding around it. And we often confuse it with narcissism and selfishness. And also, does it have any meaning for leadership? It was the first academic research in the world that actually explored self-love in relation to leadership. And so it became a bit of a huge thing at the time. And it was a profound experience for me. As part of that, I ended up, at that stage I was training as a yoga and meditation teacher. My spiritual journey was getting deeper and deeper. And that was really the catalyst to then leave corporate and leave this very lucrative profession as a CA, and to then found my own practice as an executive coach. And that, I think, it was this. I could speak a lot about self-love, so I'm mindful of going down. I think that could be a whole separate podcast.
I think as leaders, we talked about this in our sessions and during your PhD, but when, again, I was trying to transition there from my experience of how I met you. And one of the things is I was, at the time, I think our agency was up to 50. We peaked at about 70 people. And I was leading these people. And I really needed someone. And I've really struggled with self-love throughout my life. And I found this teacher that was available and specialized in, like you said, did those first. It was such an amazing experience. And you've continued in that same vein with the PhD.
Yes, because the PhD is about wholeness and spiritual intelligence in leadership. And what does that mean? So it was almost the next step from self-love. Because by self-love, I didn't mean just the superficial, telling ourselves nice affirmations in the mirror or looking after ourselves. That's important. But this was a real understanding of what is self, what is love. And that really then takes us into expanding our how we consciously understand this concept. It takes us into understanding it from a very spiritual lens. And something that I noticed at the time was of the research was many people referred to a sense of wholeness and linked that to self-love. So that was the next step. And exploring in my PhD wholeness, using the lens of the Eastern wisdom tradition. In this case, it was the Vedantic wisdom tradition. And looking at the constructs of wholeness, being, consciousness, and joy. What does that mean for our wholeness as human beings? So, yes, there was very much a common thread.
Amazing. And Luke, as I said, we've shared Nerisha as our business coach. How have you introduced your business and yourself to Nerisha, and how is it benefiting you?
Well, I think Nerisha came highly recommended by yourself, and I just took the risk and took the leap, and it felt like, I think our first call, Nerisha, was, I still remember it, sitting in my office behind my desk, thinking I should probably be in the garden somewhere. But it just felt like there was it resonated, and it was actually really awesome to feel seen and understood by you. And I think for me, I mean, you haven't been coaching me for very long. I think it's coming up to 7 months now, and it's just been really great. It's been really awesome, and it feels good because there's we resonate on a level that it's not just superficial. And it's been really helpful for me. And even this conversation now, it's like I have so many questions because this is stuff that I myself stand for and think about a lot as well. So, I mean, this could be a very long episode, but it won't be. Maybe we should do multiples. But, I think I'm keen in our next round of coaching to start working on the self-love space. And I'm going to read your book. So maybe could you tell us a little bit about your book for me and for the listeners too, and I'm sure for John as well.
Yes, sure. And I'm glad that you take advantage of the online coaching to sit in the garden during our sessions. Good. So the book was published based on my master's research and interviews with, I think it was about 25 very well-known leaders around South Africa on their understanding of self-love. Did they think it's important for leadership? And amazingly, almost pretty much every single one said yes. And we've never thought about it, but yes, it's fundamental. Yet there was no research in the world exploring this. But it has a profound impact on leadership. Leaders with low self-love, some of the findings were such leaders are inclined to bully others or be insecure, shoot down ideas, or, engage in decision-making that's not healthy for the organization or for the people. And it's a huge impact, whereas it's quite the opposite for leaders who have a healthy sense of self-love, and that it's very different from selfishness and narcissism. from the findings, once the research was published by UCT, I then went on we published in a peer-reviewed European journal, and I then went on to write the book, which is called Selflove, The Authentic Path to Conscious Leadership. And it's...
awesome.
And sorry, just to jump right in there, maybe
Yes.
not part of the transition, but the title of your PhD?
The title of my PhD was Leading Without Greed, a Vedantic Lens on Wholeness Toward Spiritual Intelligence in Leadership.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I'm going to take us back to the incredible machine. Okay, so that I feel you are, and we'll get into that. And like I said, I gave the intro in the intro that you had met Madiba. Can you
Yes.
give a little snippet of how you met Madiba?
Oh, yes, it was such a memorable experience. I was actually a university student at the time, and Madiba had just been released from jail. And I had been wondering, why are all these leaders going on and on? You know, at the time it was Bill Clinton, and everyone is going on about how meeting him is the greatest experience of their lives. And I thought, they're really overdoing it. I mean, like what could be so great? And I remember walking out of the library of the university, and there were these screaming students going wild. And there was Madiba with his bodyguards and my mother, who was in charge of public relations and communications for the university at the time. And she was walking with him, showing him around. And then she spotted me and she said to him, "That's my daughter." And he said, "Come." I stepped forward and his guards blocked me. And he said, no, let her come. And what struck me was when he shook my hand and looked at me, and he's very tall. I think I came up to his hip. He looked so deeply into my eyes as if I was the only living being, the most important human being in the world to him. You know, that sense of presence I've only felt from really great saints and monks in India. And he said, "It's such an honor to meet you." And I thought, what? I looked at him and I said, "It's such an honor to meet you." But just that presence, it wasn't because he was famous. It wasn't because of what he had done. It was because of this presence of his being. And there were all these screaming, dancing students all around, but he was there was this stillness and this presence. And I just remember my knees shaking afterwards for about an hour. It was such a magical experience. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I love that. Again, this is the Incredible Machine podcast, and that is the pinnacle. Madiba would be the pinnacle of the Incredible Machine for me. And we talked about this prior to the session today. But the Incredible Machine for me is that person that changes the room. I use the example of Brian Habana. But what you've just talked about right there is exactly what I'm talking about. Somebody that, and again, that's the sort of the pinnacle of. But in terms of our labeling of it being a machine, I think you might have a different view of that. And you've mentioned the word being. Can you unpack the being and how you see that as different?
Yes, I was interested because you asked me, tell us who you are. And I thought about this, who am I? And for me, I define myself as just pure spirit. One with everything, one with the soul of this universe, the trees, the stars, all human hearts and beyond. And that has really come from my spiritual understanding, the teachings of the great spiritual masters. And I think in this world, sometimes we define ourselves by our job titles or our relationships or degrees or bank balance, but none of these things are who we really are. When we come into this world, we're not born with any of these things as little babies. We come with spirit. When we depart, we don't take any of these things with us. We depart as spirit. And I think as human beings, we're losing that connection to our being. So I was intrigued when I saw the title of the podcast was An Incredible Machine. I thought, okay, I'm honored to be thought of as incredible. I don't think of myself that way, but certainly on the machine part, but I'm not a machine, I'm a being. And I feel that in this capitalistic age, often we risk treating ourselves and others like machines. And that can create a lot of suffering for ourselves and others. And I feel that what we really need, we're losing this connection. As human beings, I feel that our divinity lies in that connection of ourselves as beings.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm just light and in a unit right now. And when the unit's done, the light carries on. But if I can get the unit optimal, then I can add more value to the world and myself first, and then be of value to the world there. And I don't know if you have anything to pick up there.
Definitely. So, firstly, on the power of our thoughts, the great saint Ramana Maharshi said, misery is nothing but unwanted thought. So this awareness of, are these thoughts serving me? Are they so much of our suffering is actually just created by housing unnecessary, unwanted thoughts. And we have power over that. We really do. Now, on this concept of wholeness, it's not a coincidence that the root of the word wholeness actually comes from the German root. It also means health, and it's also linked to holiness. So true wholeness, linked to holiness, comes from this connection with this divine, universal intelligence and spirit that's within us, that's all around us. We can say, okay, yes, everything is interconnected. The chemicals that the body releases impacts the mind, impacts the emotions. Everything is interconnected. But this true wholeness then fosters a connection with this divine intelligence to really, really, that takes us beyond a mechanistic form of connection. So if we think of a machine, it's mechanistic. We understand how things are connected. If we think about ourselves as human beings, what is that intelligence behind the body secreting certain chemicals that then impacts the mind, that makes our heart beat, that makes our food digest? We're not doing any of that. And if we're connected to this consciousness, this spiritual intelligence, that will guide us as to what is needed for our wholeness. Oh yes, you need to go maybe on a retreat. You are burnt out, and this is the one that you could go to. This will help you go a bit further in your journey as a being. Or maybe you need this, maybe you need that. So we're not looking at ourselves. We're in touch with our being, and we're following that inner wisdom of our being, which comes from this spiritual connection. Yeah.
I love that. You made me think, and the person that best to tell you, to help you if you can't figure it out, is probably a coach. And one of the things is in the feminine energy that I've needed in my life. It's been such a blessing having you in my life and in our lives, Luke. So we're going to transition now, I think, unless you've got more to unpack.
Just a quick question.
You said you had a lot of questions. Go for it.
It might be helpful for people listening to this. Why do you think, or what is the importance of business leaders, organizational leaders, entrepreneurs, people leading people? Why is it important for them to seek wholeness? And I'll leave that to you to answer.
Oh, it's such a great question, and it's because if we don't understand the interconnectedness of everything in this world, that can lead to harm, which is what we're seeing in this world. But in order to be able to understand and appreciate the interconnectedness of everything, we have to have a sense of wholeness within ourselves. We have to have a sense of connectedness within ourselves. So I think that, when I explored in my PhD this concept of what is it that makes leaders not whole, and this concept of greed. This concept of greed comes from not feeling whole. So often we may feel like, I need to fill up. I need more and more and more. I'm already a billionaire, trillionaire, but I need more and more and more. And because that's an imbalance, it's not taking into account the impact, the holistic impact on everything and everyone, including the environment. It creates an imbalance. The external imbalance and impact on the world is created by this internal inner imbalance and lack of wholeness within that human being. So if all of us could find within ourselves, because true wholeness and true self-love can only come from within. And if all of us cultivate that through this higher levels of consciousness, through spiritual intelligence, then we will also navigate the world in a way with an appreciation, a holistic understanding of the impact of everything. We will not cause harm to ourselves and others. Because if we create harm out there, it's going to come back. We will understand that. So I think it's very important for leaders.
So how would we do that? How, in your experience and how you help people, what is the first step towards that?
First step would be wanting to be more whole. Recognizing, do you know what? Everything I've been trying doesn't work. Suffering is usually the prompter.
Yeah.
You can't force it onto anyone. Some leaders may still need to go through that journey of becoming a trillionaire and still realizing they are miserable and dissatisfied, and maybe that will turn them into looking within. So that's the first step, is intending, you know what, I want inner peace. I see the value of that. I want to be whole. I want to not create harm for myself and others. And the minute we have that, the noble intention, then the guidance starts to come. We may open up spiritually. We may have an awakening. And the right books will come. The right teachers will come. The right inner guidance will come. That guidance from God will come within us. And then we go on our journey. And everyone's path is unique, but it's holding that intention. And the universe will then support. It supports noble actions. In any way it will come and help you.
That's great.
That's awesome. I have that kind of atmas, and I like, again, probably too mechanic, and that's why I love having you in my life, Nerisha. But if you can guide on this, because I have that as the first step is awareness. And understanding, like, I'm the erratic, and maybe these people are giving me these gifts, like, to calm me down and make me less self-conscious and all that sort of stuff, and they're trying to help me. So awareness, then acceptance that I am, and like you said, like that an awakening, or the acceptance, and then action. And action is reaching out or doing the thing, or like I was saying, getting a coach. Michael Jordan still had a coach at the Bull, like throughout his life. Michael Jordan's the best in the world. These Olympic athletes that we've just experienced now, they have coaches. It should never end, and then so it's awareness, acceptance, action, and then the last A as a bonus is just adherence. So adherence is doing the work, sustaining it, so you do. I don't know if you could tell us about retreats, or if you feel like sharing that now. I've always been fascinated and love to have the opportunity to experience a retreat one day, but you retreat in a global nature.
Yes. So my retreats, I've lived and worked in many places around the world, but for me, India is the place that I retreat to. So I go, I've been going for many years, many times, as often as I can, and at least once a year. And I just find it's a very challenging place, but if you go on a retreat, wherever you go, firstly, it's the intention. I want to connect to my being. I want to find that inner stillness. I want some kind of higher knowledge that's going to help me along my way, along my spiritual journey. So first is intention, and then it comes. I think when I go to India, it inspires me. I find something very extraordinary there that I have never found anywhere else in the world. Just a sense of holistic understanding when we talk about this wholeness with people. And deep ancient wisdoms that are still alive today. One that never fails to make me smile is in the little holy towns out of the cities, which are becoming increasingly very, very modernized. But in the holy places, there's a practice every evening of coming out, everyone together, singing in gratitude to the beautiful rosy setting sun, and to the beautiful Ganges river, saying thank you. And to me, it lifts my spirit. It takes us out of these mundane, capitalistic pursuits into really just connecting to our spirit, connecting to the divine, opening our hearts in appreciation. Even as we're sitting here, we're breathing in beautiful, fresh air. Where does it come from? What a beautiful gift. Some people don't even have that much. They don't even have pure, fresh air to breathe. But I think if we talk about joy and wholeness and self-love, just having a little practice each day of taking time to just feel thankful for little things can suddenly just turn an ordinary day into something extraordinary.
I think gratitude is something that's been in vogue for a while now, but maybe it's not, as we're not as grateful. We don't celebrate as much as we could. Yeah. I think just to transition now to, because Tim, the Incredible Machine, is the podcast, and then we also talk about Tim being This Is Marketing. Nerisha was helpful enough to choose a campaign and that we would discuss, and it's the Apple Think Different. So it's an original. Everyone should know this one. If they don't, they're going to get spoiled for it. But it's beautiful, and I love coming across it. So we'll discuss it in. First, we're going to listen to it now and watch it, and then we'll transition to discussing it in terms of our 6 principles and how specifically it fits in with the new principle of Think Different. Crazy Be Strong.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Perfect. So absolutely love that campaign and that ad out of that campaign. And I can talk about it. What was interesting for you about it?
I think just that it celebrated uniqueness and being different. You know, too often we follow the herd, and we lose touch with being able to break out of conventional ways of thinking. I think genius, in my observation, tends to come from having the courage to think differently. And it takes a lot of courage. So that's what I love about it. Although they missed out the great monks and ancient spiritual teachers across time, who I feel were just embodied this, being a rebel, not afraid to be a misfit, not afraid to be persecuted, to stand up for just holding something so different, higher noble ideals that are still with us thousands of years later, hundreds of years later, that still inspire and guide people everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's so we've got our principles, and they're broken up into 3 categories, concepts, if you like, and it's IQ, AQ, and EQ. So intelligent quotient, emotional quotient, and the adaptive quotient is that, so your ability to change. And that campaign would be a case study that we would feature in the concept of AQ, the ability to change, because it's thinking differently or crazy be strong. So out of the box, you would call it. So it's like, don't go with the norm. One of the things, I was previously at TBWA. That's as far as I understand, it's a Chart Day TBWA a campaign. So it's linked, it has a special place for me because it was at an agency linked to them. And then Steve Jobs, and the way that they approach it, I think it could be, I agree with you, it could totally be updated today and have that, and we would be more accepting. I imagine the world is definitely more accepting in ways of having spiritual leaders in there, and so maybe they should do an update. To move on to the quote that you've designated for today's session, and this is one I'm not very familiar with. I don't know if Luke is familiar. But to explain why it keeps resounding with you, or it's so special to you, and we can unpack it from there. So, do you want to say it, or do you want me to read it out? Because you would know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, it's, "He who sees me everywhere and sees all in me He never becomes lost to me, nor do I become lost to him. And that's a shloka from the Bhagavad Gita. So your question was, why
is that so important to you? What does it mean to you?
So it links to seeing with eyes of spiritual intelligence, seeing with eyes of divinity. And I really feel that when we can find that connection with God and with this divine intelligence, that's the higher intelligence, this higher consciousness that's needed in this world. It's not for anyone to define what that is or what God is. It's for each person to go on their journey without assumptions and preconceived notions and to discover it for themselves. Why is it important to me? I think if we could see divinity in everyone and everything, including ourselves, that is higher self-love. That would make the world a better place, surely. We would not want to then harm ourselves or others if we can appreciate the divinity in everything. That's what I see in India. They appreciate the divinity in a tree, in a river, in a human being. It's not always executed well everywhere, but certainly that's the philosophy, which is more alive in some holy places than others. I think it takes us then beyond stereotyping, beyond seeing differences. We're all different. We're all unique. But somehow there is this golden common thread, and that is this divine inner spirit, which is the same in everybody, regardless of our gender, our class, our color, our whatever. So it creates then this seeing with an equal vision of oneness.
So would you define, I've heard you say a few times, see others through the eyes of divinity.
Yes.
How would you define that for people who don't understand?
That's such a great question. It's looking beyond the person, beyond their physical attributes, and connecting to that divine spirit which they are. In order to do that, we need to also know ourselves as divine spirit. Yes, on the surface, I'm so-and-so, I do this, I've done that, I've achieved this, I'm whatever. But if we really know, inside me, really, I am this divine spirit, this being, and so is that other person, then actually we are one. Yeah. Then we can connect to anybody at such a beautiful level. And that is a great spiritual truth. And so that's what I love about this quote.
And that affects the way we do everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So it affects the way we interact with people. And treat people that work for us. We work with our family.
Yes.
That changes the way we treat our clients and our projects and the way we conduct business and lead people. Yeah.
100%.
When you know, you know yourself, you also know what you're not.
You know what you're not. And if you could see yourself as part of God, everyone else as part of God, it's just, we don't have to then go around saying, I must remember to be kind. This is now working at a root level of spiritual truth. How do I cultivate this way of seeing this divinity in all? I think part of what people loved about Madiba, as an example, because you brought up Madiba as one of your, someone who really inspires you, is this, we call it in Sanskrit, samatvam, the same-sightedness. Whether he was with his gardener or meeting a little student at a university or meeting Queen Elizabeth, he was the same to all. It wasn't that, because this person's now famous and rich, I must be different, and that person is perceived by society to be a nobody, so I'm just dismissive. Same with all. And that touched people's hearts and spirits.
I think it's seeing the intrinsic value of each person.
Yes.
Yeah, not just what they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we can have a link to this in a couple things we need a link to in the show notes. But one of them, the podcast that I just listened to, was the Forgotten Tapes, or the Lost Tapes. So it was the author that Long Walk to Freedom, I think, and he had tapes of his interviews with Madiba and that sort of stuff. And something I didn't know, but at some stage, Madiba, when in hiding, was a gardener. He was gardening. And it's interesting to drive down the road and on the streets or in the lovely estate that you might be a part of and see people on the side of the road and think who that is, and who that could be. And that's how you just treat everyone as they're equals to you. So So I love greeting people with that same way, and I'm you, you are me, and we are one. Be the understanding there.
It's profound because I recently read a book, it was a talk that the Dalai Lama gave. And he said, in Buddhism, there's a concept of bodhisattvas, enlightened beings who come down to assist others spiritually. And he said, you never know what form they might take. So someone may not be evident, and that is why every human being, to your point of the gardener, that could be a bodhisattva. Heavily disguised, so we don't know, in the form of a gardener, in the form of,
He was in disguise.
Yes.
And actually in the Lost Tapes, he talks about how someone did recognize him.
The Harvard professor, Richard Alpert, who when he went to India in the 1970s, then he got a guru and he changed his name to Ram Dass, and he said, treat it as if everyone you meet is God in drag.
Yes, love it. Treat everyone you meet as if they're God in drag. And I'll have it, yeah, I definitely love that. And then there was the other one that I wanted in the show notes as a video, or a link to a video where at the end of our take is, you are everyone you will ever meet and have ever met. And you have to live every life. So knowing that is like, that's you. Just in drag, like you said. Yeah. And it's amazing. I
want to say something quickly because these are high, noble ideals and quotes. And sometimes we may feel discouraged when we fall off the bus a bit and we may lose our temper with somebody. And this part of self-love and this wholeness journey is also not being so hard on ourselves, but to acknowledge that as long as we are journeying this way, our intention is pure. This is what we are aspiring to. You just keep getting up, trying again. And that's why those daily practices of meditation, prayer, study of spiritual scripture is so important, because it keeps encouraging us. We get back up, we keep on trying, practicing. We all come with different hurts and wounds and traumas. Naturally, it's easier said than done to just see God in everyone. We are going to lose it sometimes, a couple of times a day. But these daily practices help keep us, bring us back.
Yeah, love. One of the things we've discussed at length, I would say, is that I wish to not wish anyone harm. I wish people just enlightenment or consciousness. I would never wish them bad, never wish them ill, wish them more consciousness.
Yes.
But sometimes you're not in a position to do that.
Yes.
And then just don't think of them at all.
Yes.
And that's back to what we mentioned earlier, as being able to go the mechanics of it and going, I mustn't think of them right now.
Yes.
But back it off. And it's difficult, again, proximity and the bubbles in the water. Something that did come up in the last few minutes is a quote that I actually referenced at my father's funeral, and it's all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. I absolutely love that. If we could just do that.
Is that Leo Tolstoy? Who's the name?
It says Blaise Pascal, but
Blaise Pascal. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up, because even with the question, Luke, that you asked earlier about how do we cultivate wholeness, this is such an important question. And for everybody that's listening, in this world where we are almost taught to be constantly productive and rushing around and doing and getting our value from doing, this ability to be quiet, to be still, is so important. That is how we connect to our being. That's how we connect to our wholeness. That's how we connect to our spirit. In the Bible, it is said, be still and know that I am God. It's only in that stillness that we can connect to this divinity, that we can know, what is this? What is this that we don't fully understand, that we can't hear or see, but is in us, is all around us. And so having these daily practices where we set aside time to be still, it doesn't matter if the mind doesn't cooperate. Initially, if we start exercising, the body also doesn't cooperate, but we persist. So similarly, with meditation, being quiet, have a little routine, even if it's 5 minutes every day, just to be still. you can use any meditation practice. Just watching the breath is important. And on weekends, maybe finding a day, maybe a Sunday, where we can be a little more quiet if possible. Just doing a digital gadget fast, no cell phones, even for a couple of hours if we can. Being out in nature, noticing things, being in our being. Slowly the mind starts to become more quiet and still. Then we're in touch with our being. We feel less anxious, less stressed, more in control, more happy. It's a practice, daily practice.
And if we can segue, and for our listeners, very privileged to be able to ask Nerisha this, if you would take us into a meditation practice as we close today's session.
Okay, so just coming into a comfortable meditative posture now. You can either sit cross-legged on the ground if you're comfortable, or if you're on a chair, just place both your feet firmly on the ground. And just take a nice deep breath in, and as you breathe out, just fully relax your whole being. Gently straightening up the spine. Let the shoulders soften down. And just feel that you can gather up your awareness and turn the lens of your awareness now within, connecting to your whole being, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Just starting with the body, you can take your awareness to the soles of your feet. Just relax the feet completely. Feel the sense of groundedness. And then gently take your awareness all the way up your body. Just relaxing the whole body. Be in touch with your body. Notice if there's any areas of tightness or tension. Breathe into those spaces, loving breaths, softening and relaxing the whole body. Let the whole face soften. And also connect to your inner organs. Relax the brain, relax the whole nervous system. Mentally, give appreciation to every organ, every cell in the body for doing what it needs to do to keep us going. And just connect to your heartbeat in this moment. Calming the heart down with every breath. Notice how the body is breathing in this moment. And as you breathe in through the nose, taking in this wonderful, peaceful life force energy. As you exhale, long out breath through the nose, fully letting go of any anxiety, any worry. Let go of all the carbon dioxide. Breathe in a sense of peace. With every breath, fully connect to your whole being. And as the breath settles down, you might notice that the mind calms down. So just shift your awareness now to the mental dimension. Become aware of the state of your mind in this moment. And just relax the mind. Let go of all mental tension. Let the mind become still. If thoughts come, just ignore them, not attaching to any thought. Let them pass by like clouds in the sky. And take your awareness now into the very essence of your being, your spiritual essence. Experiencing yourself as a being of light, connecting to this innate sense of goodness and peace and wisdom, which is what you are. And just feel what it feels like to abide in this inner stillness of your being. Free from all fear, free of all rushing and thinking, just being. fully whole in your being. And staying connected to that, take your awareness to your heart center. Just notice the feelings that are in you today, whatever they are, acknowledging the feelings, while at the same time staying fully grounded in this reassuring hug of your being. You can visualize a light at your heart center, just expanding, radiating a beautiful energy of well-being and peace to all the cells in your body, all the thoughts in your mind. And just feel that you can send this out to all beings in the world, holding the intention, may I be peaceful and happy and free of suffering. May all beings be peaceful and happy and free of suffering. And take a nice deep breath in. As you breathe out, gently rub your thumbs across your fingertips, wriggle your fingers and toes, and slowly open your eyes.
Thank you. Anything else? Anything else?
Just to say thank you so much, John and Luke, for having me on your podcast, and that both of you are very incredible beings and machines as well. So it's a great privilege to be here with you. And thank you to everyone who is listening. I hope that you gain something that is beneficial to you in some way.
Thank you so much.